Hello everybody, this is Bitcoin Macro, and on this video I'm going to be talking about Solana. So Solana had a pretty big bump and has gotten everyone to talk about it recently after the big dump. It was the first one that recovered so quickly and its bounce was really hard. Clearly it was like some other coins did the same thing like Dogecoin, but Solana has a nice ecosystem right now that I'm going to talk about as well. It's a small one, but there are some stuff that I want to mention because there are some key factors that I do believe people need to consider when thinking about Solana and tokens on Solana. So I'm not gonna say, guys, that this is gonna pump straight right now. It could do pretty well. But I do believe that potentially a pullback down into this area would be nice for buying, because if you just look at this chart, you can see all those areas where things have been pulling back all the time and have been going higher. So the key fundamental reason for Solana is that Ethereum has really high fees, and the same thing for every layer 1 protocol, but Solana has some pretty big bikers, and FTX, which is a pretty large exchange right now, is trying to push for the use of Solana, and they're trying to build on top of Solana. And I do believe that that's a key factor, because if you have such major players that are invested in you, there is something going on. Now, I'm not saying Solana is the future. I'm not saying Solana is decentralized or any of that. I'm not going to sell you any hype. I do believe that they have a good team and they could do pretty well. But like every other thing, it's just like work in progress. Nothing is finished here, guys. And the thing is, like, the landscape changes all the time. So with any of the stuff that I do, remember that this is not about hype. Yes, I might believe that something's going to go up, but I also know that there could be corrections and all that stuff. And that's why I tend to like to look at stuff against Bitcoin, because I don't want to get caught in the noise of, movements versus the USD. So if I look for example, Solana against Bitcoin, I do have an interesting picture right now, because look at this, like this pump and this pump, it could turn just like this. So if we just take that as an example, and we take that fractal, that little fractal right here, we could potentially see Solana do something similar, let's say. So it could just pull back all the way down here. Very similar. Just come down to this high. To a similar high like this one right here. So maybe potentially come down here, retest this all-time high, the previous one over the summer, so which came all the way back down, full cycle. Clearly this was a mini cycle, whereas other coins did the same on a much larger time frame. But against Bitcoin, guys, these things don't really matter. Like, as long as a coin does a full cycle, it's worth paying attention. And that's because all the sellers that were looking at the Bitcoin price and they were chasing Bitcoin go out of the game. Now, it could potentially come all the way back down here in case you have a really big drop, maybe even down here. But I do believe that if alts start correcting and the alt season is over, maybe Solana does get back down here and then go higher. I don't believe that right now it's going to go below this level right here. Again, I don't want to hype stuff. I don't want to tell you guys to chase something that has gone up so much, but I do want to talk about some stuff that are on Solana as well, and just mention something briefly in terms of market cap of Solana. So Solana has gone up about 100x in terms of market cap since June of 2020. It's a bit less, but it's still quite a bit. Okay, and the reason is that right here, if you see this pump here, so I'm just going to try and put the logarithmic chart so that you can see it. That was because of an unlock of tokens. So Solana had capitulated versus Bitcoin. It was falling while Bitcoin was going up as well. And then when the unlock came, things had already gotten quite bearish. Maybe some people were expecting that. Maybe it was just the correction from this pretty big rally right here, because Solana had gone up quite a bit over the summer as well. It had just come out as a project, and that's why it had a nice correction, and that's fine. And I do believe that eventually it will get another correction. But the thing is, we need to remember that now it's near a 10 billion market cap coin, and the more a token grows, we need to remember there are some limitations. Okay, like a coin can't really grow so much that, let's say, it would overtake BNB, because we have to look at other tokens and kind of compare them a bit. Yes, maybe they do get higher than that valuation, but we need to see where is that demand coming from. So for example, Ethereum is listed on so many exchanges. So why would Solana, let's say, surpass Ethereum right now? Maybe in the future it does, but where would that demand come from? Ethereum, for example, is listed on Coinbase. There are certain products, there are even Ethereum ETFs right now, which Solana doesn't have. And that's a pretty big reason. And again, remember, like, the more you go down, the more like we see projects below, let's say, Binance Chain and all that stuff, let's say Polkadot and Cardano, the less demand these projects have, because the less people will use them. People want something with stability, reliability, and liquidity to trade on. So when you have so many projects, the pie, it does grow, but the thing is, certain players are going to capture most of it. Okay, so the pie grows as more users come in, but if there are certain chains that are more dominant, they're going to draw more people in. So Solana might become dominant in the future, but its ecosystem is quite small right now. But that's a big plus at this stage, because if we start investing in these tokens in a young ecosystem, they have more growth potential, and especially because they are backed by FTX and Alameda. So they all have some pretty big backers, and I do believe that's a very big reason to be interested in these things. So it doesn't mean that these people won't sell on you, like they won't dump on you, but we have to remember that these people, if these tokens haven't pumped much, then it's more likely that they will pump, both because they might pump them, but also because, in a young ecosystem with limited choices, if people are hyped about Solana, then they're also going to look at the tokens on Solana, and essentially then you have something with a higher beta. Essentially, people flowing into these tokens will pump them even more, and because their choices are way fewer, let's say, than the Ethereum ecosystem, they are way more limited. Then they just go and buy 5 tokens, so they're not like having to think about 100 different tokens. And that's why I'm going to talk a bit about a few of them. So one of them is Raydium, which I don't really think it's a very strong one. Right now we're going to look at the chart. Then I do believe the strongest one is FIDA, Bonfida. Then there is Oxygen. It's also an average one, but it could do very well. And then I also do believe there is Maps, which was a recent IEO on FTX. So this is something that you would like to consider as well. At least that's my opinion. Something that has been built on top of Solana. And then finally, we do have Serum, the Serum ecosystem, because Serum hasn't really had a major pump yet, but it hasn't looked weak, but it hasn't looked very strong either. And that's why I do believe that it's worth paying attention to, because, oh, I'm sorry, I clicked the wrong link. And that's because, for example, there are those random tokens, Serum Ecosystem token. I wouldn't recommend you buying that because it's just a token that represents other stuff. Same thing with Holy Trinity. You might see these things on FTX, but they're just some random tokens that are like an index. Something similar with Cope, that's just like representing something weird. It's like a liquidity pool token where you just wrap Ethereum or something like it. I wouldn't recommend buying any of that because it has also gone up quite a bit. And then, like I said, Serum hasn't gone up so much. It's a larger one, like 310 million is pretty large. It has quite a significant time value locked in it, total value locked in it, sorry. It's pretty good. I do believe that it could grow, especially because DEXs on other platforms like Uniswap are not doing very well because of the fees. Uniswap is doing well, don't get me wrong, and the upgrade is going to be great, and it's going to move on to other stuff as well. But right now, people don't really want to use it as much. So I would say that, maybe you want to consider some of those projects. A DEX on a different chain would be quite interesting, especially because it's a liquid one. Like FTX is trying to help Serum grow, especially like having about 300 million of time value locked, it does mean that there is some liquidity on it. So it has an order book as well, pretty good stuff. So these are the projects I would suggest you look at. So Oxygen Marketcap, that's pretty large. That's why I say I don't like it as much. It's something that got released more recently, and that's why I don't believe you should run and buy something that of that market cap. Like, that's about 1/20th of the Solana market cap, and that's quite a bit for such a young project. Similar thing with Raydium, all the stuff that had recent IEOs, they raised money and they got such high valuations. Maybe you want to wait to see some strength. I'm not saying that the charts are looking awful, but they might just not be the best choice right now. But Bonfida, cheap, 60 million, nice. Also, Maps, 100 million, way less. So let's go and check the charts right now. And I'm just going to do it in USD terms because, like I said, they are much younger projects. So there isn't much history to look versus the dollar. And that's why I would want to look at them. So look at this big, nice comeback right here. And we've seen it trend quite nicely. But we haven't seen a blow off top yet. We haven't really seen something really bad yet. We haven't seen the explosive move that I would be expecting. So yeah, it's up about 600%, but that's not a lot given that they raised a small amount of money. And if I just look, let's say, at Maps, it shows me something similar. You see, that's a solid trend. That's a solid, nice trend that I do believe eventually it would want to explode higher. You see, this thing is like, it's layer after layer. So you have a consolidation higher, pullback, consolidation, chop, sideways, higher, pullback all the way down here, higher. And now maybe it does go sideways a bit. Maybe that's because Solana is going to go a bit sideways, but then boom. Okay, now Oxygen. That's an interesting sideways movement, but it's just not that attractive. I don't know what to say really. This chart doesn't show me much, but again, if you want to buy the entire like FTX and Solana ecosystem, I wouldn't say no. Just buy a little bit. Just buy a little bit and just wait. Okay, just treat them as moon bags. If they do well, fine. If they don't, oh well. But again, just remember that the first two that I mentioned are way cheaper than these two. Because if I just look at this, that I don't know, that had a nice bump right here straight away. That's usually not the best indication that this is gonna go. Like when it has a really quick pump and then people offload and then it goes sideways, I don't know. Maybe you could wait for it to do something like this, pull back, chop a bit like this, and then higher. I do believe that this would probably be a much better situation, because then this would have turned into proper accumulation. Because right now, if I just look at this, well, we've just broken down. We've broken down, so until I see this reclaimed, maybe it's not the best thing to buy. Whereas the other two have shown quite a lot more strength. And now some other projects I want to mention that are related to FTX. One of them is Hxro. It could do well. I'm not a massive fan. There is a decent project. There is a decent product, excuse me. It has done well. It's just listed on FTX and Bittrex, and I don't know if there is anywhere else. It's not a bad product. It's not a bad project, but I don't know how many people use it actually. Plus, the chart versus BTC doesn't look all that attractive because the old chart is on Bitcoin. And that started as a really small project actually, and it has grown quite a bit in terms of, its price right here. So it doesn't look bad, but it looks a bit weird. Again, if you want to buy stuff that Sam owns and Sam is invested in, go for it. Like, this is one of those, but I just don't think that it can grow much more than 150 million. Maybe double, maybe triple, but I don't know if that many people use it, that this means that the valuation is reasonable. Now, UpBots is another one. It's not a bad one. I do believe that it could do well, but it has pumped a bit, and it's one of those tokens that I don't understand what the use case is. Like, I'm not gonna lie, with most of these tokens, there isn't really a proper use case. So for this one, for example, you trade manually with trading bots or run your algorithm twice, and I'm like, why do I need that token? It's just you just have a platform. Okay, so again, with all these things, the main component is FTX. So if you want to buy stuff on FTX because people just buy gems on FTX, or because you believe Sam is going to pump them, go for it. But other than that, I wouldn't really recommend buying these things because there is potential for them. So again, guys, maybe we do get a pullback here on the Solana stuff, and then they go higher. Maps and Bonfida look better than the rest. Solana has broken its all-time high. I don't know if this situation is just similar to where it bottomed versus Bitcoin. I do believe that it has more to grow. It has potential right now. So if I just look at the daily chart, it doesn't look that bad. It could continue higher, maybe in a similar fashion like this. Maybe it has a few more candles of upside, but at some point I do believe it's going to come back down. So I do believe that after the correction, maybe it does something like this and get back down to this level right here. And then eventually, when you see something like this, it will be a nice thing to buy. So both times, actually, Solana, when we got a correction and when we got a bottom on Bitcoin, on the 25th of March, we had that nice correction on Bitcoin. I think we hit 50K, if I'm not mistaken, and then boom, it rallied higher. Now we had that correction back to 55K, boom, it rallied higher. So every time we get a big correction, maybe buying Solana is the best choice. Now, I don't really believe that the same way we go below this low, this is going to be like a top, because otherwise this would have been the top, not this. So there is more room for growth. And again, if you buy those tokens that I mentioned, again, just don't take my word and just go, just that's just an opinion, okay? That's just an opinion. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. Please like the video, subscribe, let me know what you think. Let me know if there are any special stuff about those tokens that I mentioned, even the ones that I don't like right now, because again, I'm not saying they won't do well, but there are some things that I do believe are kind of like limiting factors on those. So once again, like, subscribe, give me your feedback. Just come join my channel on Telegram, come join the centralized chain channel. You can ask questions, we can have a discussion, you can tell us what you think in general, what stuff you would like to hear about. So thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.